Batu, Barada, Nikto.
You must remember those words.
Gordon's alive.
You know what the Turing test is?
I know Kung Fu.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Stories Out of Time and Space. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and as always, I'm joined by Julian Darius. Julian, how are you doing?
I think I'm okay. I feel slightly traumatized.
We'll see if it's in a good way or a bad way. Yes, because we are finishing our Alien Interlude. We're working our way through I don't know. Well, this is going to be interesting because I chose not to do Prometheus and Covenant. But they kind of become important to what we're going to talk about today.
This is clearly a sequel to Covenant, and
yes.
this is with that. It is not, with the main line.
No, but it holds a lot of things we've gone through, and we've been through Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Cubed, and Alien Resurrection, and now we're going to talk about Alien Remix, or Alien Romulus, as it's actually called. This is the latest entry in the Alien franchise, and it's while scavenging in the deep space end of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. Starring Kaylee Spaney as Rain, David Johnson as Andy, Archie Radu as Tyler, Isabel McCade as Kay, Spike Fern as Bjorn, Aline Wu as Navarro. They're the main cast. And in there, kind of posthumously credited, is spoilers for is Ian Holm as Rook. A different version of Ash, which becomes kind of interesting to the plot. So, let's start then. What were your initial thoughts then on Alien Romulus?
I wanted to like this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that I did initially. I mean, I think that as it starts, I think, well, this is shot well. This is interesting. I kind of, am into the premise. I don't really buy the kid miners. They don't look rough enough. All their parents are conveniently dead. It's really easy to hijack the ship, but, and also it's like a parody of corporate shenanigans with like, oh, you've completed your 12,000 hours. Guess what? Now it's 24,000,
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's a little hackneyed, but, okay, that's fine. Let's get onto the space station and get to the action. And the action starts and it's okay. Every 15 minutes is like a full letter grade worse than the last. And by the end of it, I mean, I can't say that I had a horrible experience, which is more than I can say for a lot of movies these days. But I truly hate this film. I really, really loathe this film. And I even loathe more, the fact that this has, for some reason, been praised. There's good stuff here, but this is one of the stupidest movies I've seen in a long time. There's almost nothing that works as taken as a film. And I am just appalled that we're at this state of cinema and global education about media, that this is considered an acceptable product. Did I state that strongly enough?
Yeah,
This
I'm not
movie
sure.
makes me want to kill myself.
Yeah. For those in the back row, I'm not as strongly adverse to this film as you are. However, I came out of this film so incredibly disappointed, but also kind of at odds with myself. For sort of similar reasons. And this is what I thought was, because I'll tell you what, there's the opening of this film. Let's talk about this. They are on a colony planet, and they obviously want to say
Well, they're on a mining planet, right?
Yeah, they're on a
That's run
colony
by
mining
Wayland
planet. No, that's fine.
Yutani. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
like this is where like take a shot every time they say Whale and Yutani, or Wayu as they sort of shorten it to. Um, I like the setup. I really do. I actually really like the setup. That actually the stuff that we've seen, in the first film, in the Alien film, is it's a mine. The Nostromo is a mining ship taking ore from somewhere, and you go, okay, where's it coming from? And they work for the corporation. We learn the corporation is Weyland Yutani. So to have Weyland Yutani have a mining core, cool. They have a mining colony. I am actually all on board with that. I like that it's shitty. I like the fact that it's sort of they use, I know some of it's a bit too wink wink nudge nudge, how's your father kind of thing. When they're like, look, that's the atmosphere processors from aliens. Yeah. That's this, and that gets increasingly irritating. Um, but I like that because again, I actually saw this and thought, oh, this is, for all that we said about it, Outland, the Sean Connery film, I actually love that industrial aesthetic. That space industrial sort of like aesthetic. All for
It
that.
it looks very Blade Runner
Oh,
on
it
the
looks
colony.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. You're right about the fact that everyone, despite the fact they're miners, and they actually have a canary in a cage at one point, and all this other stuff as a really kind of heavy metaphor for some other shit. Um, but I was like, they're not dirty enough to be miners. Like these people should be like, I don't know what it is you're mining, and I know you're probably careful of like being accused of blackface, whatever. But like these people should be filthy head to toe, or at least partly. If they're down mines, it's going to be dirty, dusty. They need to be grubbier. Their clothes need to be grubbier. This needs to be a much dirtier place. Even more so than what you've made it.
Yeah, and have scars and injuries. And,
Yeah,
I mean, they talk a lot about these mining accidents. They love the mining accidents,
but
but
everyone's
everybody looks like they just walked off of Beverly Hills
yeah,
90210.
exactly. This was my other problem is the cast are too young.
Mm-hmm.
This cast of like they're too young and they've got this thing of like we've got to get off to this other planet, we've got to get off to this other paradise planet or whatever, right? We've got to get off to this other place and we're going to get these things, this technology. And I'm sort of going like, cool, you're young and you're supposed to be, but like this should be at least one or two members of this should be like a beleaguered, older person going like, you don't want to become me.
Yeah.
Like I am battered by this life, and I want it. I'm trying to help you get off before you become me, and it just sort of seems too sort of self-actualizing, and that kind of bothered me as well. Um, so yeah, no, I like the opening of this, and I'm with you though. The thing is, this film does start to descend very quickly, into
So,
a weird mediocre setting.
well, yeah, and just bad writing,
Yeah.
just appalling writing. Okay, so I agree with you. I'm with you so far. It's cool watching them take off, even if it's convenient, whatever. I love Andy, and I think Johnson
David Johnson
steals the
is
show in every season.
100%. He's the one
It's
thing in
just
this
like,
film. Amazing
yeah,
performance.
he's the one thing that just works from start to
Yes.
finish. Yeah, absolutely. We're on the same page. Okay, but you say this about the setup. That's true, but that's not really the setup, right? Because
Mm.
if you just throw people into the story of some miners who happen to, okay, that all sounds perfectly decent. But let's back up and having seen the film, say what really is the plot. And the plot is that not miners, the plot is that a space station, which was designed by a bad villain, clearly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I have an idea. Let's build a space station and let's make it based on the Romulus and Remus theme. I mean, it is literally like they wrote this film as a horror movie in space and said, you know what, it's not deep enough. Let's flip open a book of classical mythology and just randomly, it's like Prometheus. Let's just find some reference to make it seem deeper. Oh,
Oh,
Romulus and Remus, that's great.
oh,
So first of all,
this had sorry that the moment that this had Event Horizon written all over it.
oh yeah. Well, and this is especially with the kids, like this is a horror movie, right? And
Yes.
he's a horror director. So let's be clear, the space station is divided in half, which if you're going to build a gigantic space station, what you want to do is build two of them with unnecessary breaks in the middle.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, it's just like, it absolutely, somebody looked at that and said, oh, that's clever, right? That one, it's a stupid, just a few second shot, but that shot of the exterior where you see one half is actually called Romulus and the other half Remus, and there's a break between them, made me want to kill myself. And then you put
I ain't gonna lie,
the little...
it made me chuckle. I actually, for simple as I saw that, and I did think, yeah, exactly as you thought. Like, okay, someone wrote this and thought that's going to be a really cool visual, and then when you see it visualized, it's sort of like the problem is whenever I see, and this is, I think this is, and I know I always make Red Dwarf references, but whenever I see things like that, and it's on it in big letters on the side of the ship. All I can picture is some dude with a brush putting it into a paintbrush on the side of the ship and just going like, and it's sort of the start of the original opening of Red Dwarf.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, someone's painted that. Someone's been out there and painted that. Why?
Well, and just to make the bat theme clear enough,
Yeah.
let's make the the statue, right, of the wolf nurturing baby Romulus and Remus, that there are duplicates of all around the world, but especially in Rome. Let's take that and put it on all the doors so that when the door opens, it splits them up. Isn't that clever?
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of thing that Weyland-Yutani, this merciless corporation, is really into. They really love the owl theme, owl Batman villain.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so that's the premise. Okay, so they found the Nostromo wreckage and got the alien, that was ejected into space inside. Okay, so far so good.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Lots of experiments, and the end result of these experiments is to create boxes filled with facehuggers that look cool, but we're going to line the entire ship with them and suspend them in this stuff that automatically opens up and releases the facehuggers the second it becomes, say, roughly 100
room
degrees.
Temperature. Room temperature.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, absolutely no security. Right. The stupidest thing. So, and we've spent years on this. We finally gotten a hold of the aliens that, well, finally, I mean, they have a hold of the aliens all along through the alien stories. And instead, even though they have a ship on the planet that is clearly capable of easily being hijacked and flying up to the space station.
Well, it's not hijacked. He owns it. No, I don't understand this because he said he owns it. The character Tyler says we've got it's basically his ship. I don't know how that works, but I must have missed something.
Okay, but clearly they have ships that can go up to the space station.
Yes.
You have this enormous thematic, Batman villain space station that has the aliens that we know that they're willing to sacrifice crews for left and right. And their solution is, right, let's just leave that abandoned and let it drift into the rings of this planet, where, in not quite as dumb as The Last Jedi, where you find out that, things slow down in space the second they run out of fuel. But this has got to be, in second place, where the rings of a planet are apparently a solid surface that things skid on and are destroyed on. I mean, that is a setup for the film.
Yes, right. Yeah, I know. We'll talk about the rings later on because I liked the visual, but I agree that there was some oddity there. I want to get back to what really bothered me, because everything you point out is right. But the other thing that kind of that got me, and was my first for this, and is, and we've talked about the fact that the alien life cycle is batshit crazy. It doesn't make sense. But I want to talk through something in this.
Yep.
So the alien that was jettisoned into space off the Nostromo. For two things, right. So this takes 20. This is set 20 years after the events of Alien, right? And we know that Ripley will not be found for another 32 years, maybe 30. I can't remember what it is now. It's 56 years. I think she's in status. So she's going to be floating in space for another 36 years. Okay, but Weyland-Yutani knows where the Nostromo is. It actively goes out and seeks the alien, which somehow has formed itself into a cocoon to protect itself in space, which I hate, by the way. I hate that. Which they then bring back, and then somehow out of this alien xenomorph that they had from the first film, they produce face huggers. So where's the queen? Where are the eggs? Sorry, I'm confused. How's that all work then? Where are the? Because we've established that you have a queen that lays the eggs. That's the one that maybe I've missed something. There might be an explanation I have missed in the film. Fine, I've only seen it the once. But the other thing is, if Weyland-Yutani knows where this thing is,
Yep.
Surely they should be able to find Ripley's escape pod to be going, there's a dollar value attached to all this. We need to speak to Ripley. But they're not going to.
Maybe she knows something about this.
Maybe she knows something about it. No, we're going to leave her strolling in space for another 36 years to be found by a salvage unit and then brought to the Weyland-Yutani company. That was my first uh-oh. The moment I saw that, I was like, uh-oh, this is...
Yeah, and that's one of the first scenes of the film,
Mm-hmm.
the salvage. Yeah, I mean, I can almost buy that they don't care about Ripley, right? Like, that's fitting. But, you'd think there'd be an ion trail or something that you can track, a ship with if you found the wreckage of the Nostromo. And clearly they found it a long time ago because they've had years to do this alien research. So you're right. Not only have they made approximately 200 facehuggers lining every corridor of, you know what? If you're going to build a corridor on a space station, what you want to do is line it with a deadly parasite that is going to murder everyone on board, and is going to do that. You want to make sure that you do that in every corridor. Like, just line the Enterprise.
Basically, in a bunch of zip baggies.
That's
basically
where you want to keep the captured.
But basically, they're in a bunch of zip baggies.
Yeah. Yeah, that automatically release at,
at room temperature.
This is so stupid beyond belief. But you say, so the alien physiology, which admittedly is stupid throughout all these movies, we pointed out flaws. Right, somehow they produce 200 facehuggers, give or take, from this one alien.
Have I missed something then? Is that explained? Right, it's not. No. Okay. I don't know where they came from.
No, they have produced some sort of, genetic modifications, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have access to the engineered goo somehow.
Well, they get that. No, they explain that they've extracted that. That became
that makes sense.
They've basically whittled. They've basically reduced back to that from the xenomorph.
How do you do that?
I don't know, but they basically reverse engineered backwards.
Now,
so my question is,
so that's like if you capture a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, right? You can retroactively create the ooze. Radioactive slime, right?
Well, the only thing I can think of for this is that because they mention they mention the events of Prometheus.
Yes, very much so.
And they say, "Oh, there's this mission, and what's it? Weyland went off to find this goo." So
Weyland's dream, the Prometheus fire.
Oh, some of the dialogue. But what was interesting is I was like, okay, so they must know about the xenomorph. They must know about the events and what the happened in that. They have some knowledge.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume in some way that the face huggers they've got have come from some other place where they have. I don't know. All right, I'm filling gaps.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But let's also point out the life cycle is, to say it's been radically accelerated, it's an underestimate. So, first, the Asian girl gets the face hugger on her, and you don't know if it's been implanted. Okay, but let's, first of all, I object to in Aliens, how, like, the aliens are used as disposable stormtroopers when they destroyed the whole ship. This one, which is set for aliens, says, hold my beer. Because a bunch of kids are like, I'm being attacked by facehuggers. They just grab like a tire iron and beat the hell out of the facehuggers, which apparently means like those Marines and everybody on the Nostromo.
Bunch of pussies.
The real story were that they sucked. Right? Yeah. Everybody in these alien movies just sucked. That's the real, bunch of kids with tire irons. That's enough. But anyway, so the Asian chick gets the facehugger on her. She gets on. And within like 30 minutes, the alien bursts out of her chest.
Yeah, I hate that.
And I thought, well, that's accelerated. But even at that point, I was like, okay, that's a mistake. But I'm willing to, sort of bracket this.
There is a suggestion.
But then
it's
by
kind
the
of
end,
yeah.
the final boss matures in about 2 minutes.
Yeah. Real time.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is really unforgivably bad.
Yeah. The whole thing with the so the only thing again, trying to fill it with my own head canon is that because
you're still trying to explain this shit,
I try
man.
to. I'm desperately trying to give this film some because I like some of the set pieces and I like some of the moments in this film. But everyone was going like, "Oh, the third act is incredible. It's insane. It's insane what they do in the third act." And then I like watched it expecting like, something incredible. The third act is the worst part of this film. Like it's fundamentally awful. But when they have the hot this now, I was like, okay, well they've got the black goo, so you see that. So maybe they've accelerated things through manipulation. Like I'm going to accept that, all right? But I hate the fact that the life cycle has been accelerated to such an extent where basically a face hugger sort of like squirts in your face, and within 30 minutes, a gestated alien comes out of you. This then begs the question: what's the point of capturing people and putting them into the sort of the resin that they
Walls,
do?
yeah.
The walls, because there's no point. You're not there long enough. What's the point? It's pointless. Makes no
Right.
sense. So there's all that doesn't make any sense anymore. You've just got rid of that. They then add a second thing because again, like you and I have said, oh, they come out like a little floppy penis of a a pupil kind of thing,
Worm kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say the
This
chest
does have
bursting scene,
Yeah, it's the best of the whole.
brilliant,
All the moves.
fucking brilliant.
100%. It
Yeah.
looks bank. Right?
Yeah, and the fact it like just cracks open and it looks gruesome and it looks painful, and I was like, that's brilliant. I'd much prefer that.
I agree.
But then the fact they've got this sort of like weird, like chrysalis pupil stage that's now been introduced.
Okay? Yeah, I was confused about this. I don't know what to say about this movie. Because there is that one scene where a full-size alien comes out of the wall, and is it just me, or I haven't been this aroused by a work of art since the Georgia O'Keeffe exhibition. Like
It's yeah.
it is a Giger vagina
Oh.
in the wall. I absolutely like.
This has gone
And
full.
it's cool design.
Oh
but
no, it is. Like this.
How does it fit into anything that we've seen before?
It doesn't. So I love the fact they've gone full Giga, and some of the design work on this is brilliant. Like some of the design work and some of the shots, fantastic. Like the aliens in the walls and how they sort of like you don't know they're there until you see the movement and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Brilliantly done.
I
Absolutely
agree.
phenomenal.
I think visually this is a great film.
Oh, and agreed. Absolutely. But this whole thing of like, oh, it's like it's a vaginal chrysalis with an alien coming out of it, whatever it's doing. So he forces a cattle prod into it
Uh-huh.
to kill it, to do whatever. That alien then comes back later at the end of the film and has electricity still zapping in its head, and that was like, this feels like one of those shitty 90s toys that they did when they were like, here's the bull alien, here's the scorpion alien, here's the electric alien. And I was just like, this is beyond irritating now. But again, this is the thing of this film. And I want to sort of finish it because I'll let you talk a minute. Sorry.
It's fine.
This
I'm
whole
enjoying
thing-
the fact that
Yeah.
we're on the same page.
This point again, one thing. So the speed of the gestation period is part of the story. So it ties into something else, which I like, but then they kind of ruin it. Is this David Johnson's Andy? I want to talk about him as a good. Let's talk about positive. His performance in this film is, as you said, the highlight. Like every scene he's in, he is the best thing in it. This switch from the sort of like the broken, stuttering, kind of telling the bad dad jokes, which actually I will admit, some of the dad jokes made me chuckle. They're good. They're stupid, but they're kind of they're there for a purpose.
We're going to agree to disagree on this.
No, but I like that bit.
But
It just feels
yeah.
cute. It's cute. Do you know what I mean? Like it's there. It's not to be
Mhm.
funny. They're not there to be funny. They're there to be going like he's been programmed to tell her those jokes because they comfort her because that's the kind of like the role he's fulfilling. So that I'm fine with that. But when they put in that protocol and they hide the face for the longest possible time, but clearly looks like Ian Holmes. So we'll talk about that in a bit. And he suddenly changes, and he's sort of like it's fixing him. He stood upright, and all of a sudden he's become this new version, and you can tell there's a sinister side to this now. Like he's an authority, and he's making these logical decisions, where he's like,
And super confident.
oh, completely,
Right.
yes,
Speaks normally.
yeah. But that all of a sudden it's sort of like, well, she's infected. I've got to protect everyone. She needs to die.
Mhm.
And like he's like, no, that's it. That's just the decision. And like the fact that like the Ian Holm character, the Rook says to him, like, you've got to protect these people now. You've got to have to make some decisions that they won't be willing to make.
Oh, I love that exchange, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, yeah, all the humans die in these movies because they're human and they're emotional, right? Like
Yes.
I love that.
Uh,
I'd also say my favorite scene in the whole movie is with the girl who, for some reason, has survived the 40-foot fall into the cargo hold.
the pregnant woman.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And oh god, there's just so many groan-worthy, terrible things. But an alien is stalking her,
Yeah.
and Andy refuses to use his, finger to unlock the door, and he says, the alien wants us to, right? This is a trap.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no, that's correct.
It's
The alien
hovering
is
in that
like
you
a
see
cat,
it
like kind of like waiting
yeah.
to pounce. And they watch through the door as, she's sort of pulled away and they're angry at Andy. That is one of the best sequences in this. Seeing the alien intelligence along with those tough decisions that you have to make in a situation like this. It articulates their prejudices toward the synthetics, especially going back to the mine, where they're like, a synthetic will make the decision to kill 3 miners to save the rest. Which is a theme in these movies. This distrust of the synthetics. Yeah, I thought that was, that was a brilliant scene. I mean, there are some brilliant moments in this. It's just the plot.
Well, this is what I'm saying. They keep doing these brilliant scenes, and then they'll basically say, "Now we're going to shit all over that with an idiot scene." So they have that great exchange, and then they have this thing of like the bloody gobby English lad, you know,
who I can't understand half the time.
yeah, you ain't gonna kill my daughter, or you ain't gonna kill my wife, all right? It's so like, hang on, surely this accent would have gone by now, but besides the point. He then gets offended, takes her back to the ship. The girl who's been Navarro, who's been
Rain.
no, it's Navarro. Rain is the main Navarro who's been impregnated with the thing. Gets her on the ship, and he's gonna do a runner. Like that's the point. But
he being Andy.
No. This is the Cockney lad Bjorn.
Okay.
And Navarro is the Asian girl who gets to facing. So they're going to do a runner. They're going to pull away with the ship.
Yeah, isn't that earlier?
A little bit. No. This is after this exchange. That's the whole point. Is when this is what happens before that. But this is where the shit. This is the thing that infuriates
after the conversation with the damaged android.
Yes,
right? But before the scene I was talking about.
Yes, so it's between those because obviously it's how they end up in the cargo hold.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this thing of they run back to the ship. And then she has a fit while she is chest bursting, literally like 30 minutes after she's been impregnated, kicks a joystick, and then the ship tears away from the space station, does this thing where it sort of shifts around and starts hitting things, and ends up after crashing and all of a sudden knocking it off its axis, which is gonna mean that they've had less time before it hits the rings of the planet. Go in, right? And it crashes into the cargo deck and all this other stuff. And I was in my head, I'm sort of going, "This is silly.
Mhm.
This is so contrived to create this situation." But you know, they I don't know. It just everything seems to be. I get really annoyed. I'm getting really annoyed with the characters. Not just because, oh, you're supposed to hate the character, but like we're back at Prometheus, where I'm like, this is just stupid decisions.
Well, and I'm confused. Like the ship gets out of control, but it skids right along the surface of this ridiculous space station and happens to wind up in the cargo hold.
Yeah,
And it seems like and they happen a lot in current cinema, where I sort of watch them and I say, I have no idea what's happening.
mm,
I mean, I can tell you what they want us to think, but I don't understand how it's working out this way. I know the takeaway is that ship's in the cargo hold now.
yeah.
That's where it
On the
crashed.
other side, on the Romulus
That's the
side.
takeaway. That's all I have to know. It's like Thanos got the gem, he did X with it. Just that's all you have to remember for the plot going forward. The logistics of it just don't matter. Tune out. All that matters is who wins in this fight. Don't pay too much attention to how they're doing it, if it makes any sense. Yeah,
No,
I mean, it's bad.
it is, and this is again where I was like, oh no, this is another uh-oh moment where I'm going like, oh no, this is
It's
what's going to
going off the
happen.
rails.
It is
No,
very quickly.
and it starts. We're both kind of into it as it starts,
Yeah,
going like this is kind of promising. It's shot great, right?
but it keeps bringing me. The problem is not the problem. It keeps bringing me back in because it'll then have another good scene where I'm like, oh, I kind of like this scene. Like this is interesting. And you may disagree on some of them, but like it feels like a video game. This film did, where
Unfortunately.
it feels like, here's the mission for this level. Get out
Yep.
of the room with the facehuggers. Da 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 da. Then this happens to create the next level. Oh, now this has happened. So you've now got to travel from Remus to Romulus to go and save your friends. That's the next level.
Hmm.
Or now this has happened, and so now you've got to do this. It just rather than feeling like an evolving story that's being told, it felt more and more like here's the next level of a video game. And now we've got to move through this corridor of face huggers, and you've got to do it in a certain way. And they're going to do this, and they respond to heat and movement. Or
Oh God.
do you know what I mean? Like, and I actually kind of like that scene where they were doing that. I liked it because I think the face huggers look great. I think the special effects in this film are actually, apart from the Ian Holm thing, but we'll talk about that, are actually really good. But it feels constantly like a video. This felt like a video game to me.
Okay, I think that's an insult, right? And I mean, I think, and I think it's deservedly so. It feels like a video game to me, and it has that video game logic of exactly what you
Yes.
say. Like, okay, so you've made it to the cryo stasis, which is what they want to get off this, station. Oh, it doesn't have fuel. Well, you've got to go to X location. The door's closed. So it feels like we're basically watching cutscenes
Yes.
between,
That's a really good point. The crash of the ship going along the side of the thing into the cargo hold felt like a cutscene
it
to
is a cutscene.
to generate the next part of the mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is bad writing. I
Mm.
mean, this makes all of those different missions feel very arbitrary. And
Yes.
that's, something that I hate in video games, right? It's like, okay, here's a bad cutscene. Now you've got to go here, and do X. And I'm like, why do I care about this again? Oh yeah, because the game told me to care about it, right? Um, a little bit of that is tolerable. But it's tolerable if you're playing one of the characters. It's not
Mm.
tolerable to watch. And I think something feeling like a video game is an insult. Um, yeah, so
All right. Yeah. No, I didn't mean it in that way. All right. It felt like me watching somebody else play a video game.
yeah, that's not good. I
No,
mean,
no, no, it isn't. It's an insult to the film.
yeah.
But I don't want to insult computer games. I know video games are.
No, I agree.
But my point
No,
being,
and I'm
like,
but the thing is, like, a good video game doesn't even feel that way. A good video
mm,
game doesn't feel like, oh, now this arbitrary thing happened. Now you've got to do X, right? Or if it does, at least X is so engaging to do that you're just like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I can't believe I'm piloting something that's flying now in a game that shouldn't be about that. Yeah, the now we've got to go through a room full of facehuggers. And you mentioned liking this scene,
I do. I
but
like this scene.
I truly hate it. But again, I don't think it's shot poorly.
Mm.
But the premise is that, I mean, it's like Jurassic Park, where it's like, if we just don't move, they won't notice us, right? All you needed to do in any of these alien movies to avoid the facehuggers is just raise the temperature a few degrees and don't make a lot of noise, man. Again, the point is like all the other alien movies, the aliens win because the people are stupid. These kids just, I just can't believe that the facehuggers are that stupid.
No, I get that in the sense that they've tried to give them a physiology that's like here. You are completely right. It's like Jurassic Park. Like their visual acuity is based on movement. Right? It's literally that line. They don't have eyes. They make sense. They sense movement and heat. So if they can't distinguish your heat from anything else, and you move steadily, then you should be okay. No sharp movements, that kind of thing. Oh, okay, I'll go with that. And I think it introduces tension, but it feels kind of contrived. That's the problem with this.
Yeah,
Everything
to say the
feels
least.
contrived. And then they do get to the thing, and this is what's ridiculous. You say they get to the next mission, they get to the end, they get to the Romulus um, cargo bay, and then they get to the scene that you talked about, where Andy says, "Oh, well, I can't open the door because now I understand what the problem is." We're gonna have the next thing where we watch a woman smashed up against the window. Again, it looks fine. The alien looks great. But it's going to sit and watch from a distance. And I do love that. I do when it's sort of sat on the top of those cargo things, just watching from a distance, its tail sort of like slowly sort of raising up, and you're like, oh, this is ready to pounce. So it looks, again, visually, I've got very few complaints about. There are certain shots in this that I think are fantastic. Really, really good shots.
I agree.
But again, this scene ends with Andy making the decision and saying, exactly, saving the life. His mission is to save Rain. But then there's this fight where sort of Tyler's like, you let her die, blah 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 blah. I don't know. It just feels again like everyone's dying in such quick succession. But also, the other thing we talked about this on the last one is the thing with a horror film. Now you don't see. I mean, what's her name? Kay's murder or killing is, kind of sketchy at best because she may or may not. We never see a body. Let's put it that way, right? You see her dragged off back into the ship, but it all feels. The killings aren't at this point inventive enough for me to be going, oh, that's cool. That's a good murder. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a good killing. Like it's not. I've seen a couple, and it's kind of like, yeah, that's fine, that's cool, it's all right, but it's not blowing me away. Where I'm like, oh, that's something new, that's inventive, that's whatever. It all feels kind of like a retread. So, yeah, that's where this sort of falls apart. But then they go to this is the next scene. From there, they go to this lab. And because they've had the whole Ian Holm thing, we'll talk. Let's talk about that now. Actually, what are your thoughts on them using Ian Holm's likeness and the performance and the special effects on that?
This has gotten a lot of criticism online, and I think especially after Rogue One and this whole idea of digitally bringing back dead characters. I was not bothered by it at all.
No.
And I sort of feel like it does connect to the first film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a smart idea to have it still be, the same model of synthetic. And if anything, because he's a damaged synthetic, his sort of like artificial movements and look feels kind of justifiable to me. So I'm not bothered by it. I mean, there's an ethical thing. I don't know.
His widow, it should say they contacted his widow and the Home estate, and they actually backed it and said, we are fully supportive of you doing this. It makes total sense, and we're happy to support it. So
Okay, so end of ethical issue,
yeah,
right? I mean, and so it doesn't bother me. I think it looks artificial, but in a way that, again, because it's a synthetic, doesn't, especially it's bother me. Um, it is a little weird watching it, but again, I'm not bothered by it. What I'm bothered by is how outright evil he is at the end, and how sort of stupidly, you know, uh, Batman villain-esque he is by the end of the film.
yeah. This is this comes to this point of this. They have this conversation about what's your primary directive, your prime directive, or your primary protocol, that kind of thing, isn't it? And originally, Andy's is to look after Rain, protect Rain at all costs.
Right.
That's his prime directive. And then he puts in this unit from the Rook slash Ash synthetic, and all of a sudden we find out that not only is this repairing him, giving him confidence, rerouting his sort of like his internal computer, whatever, it's also giving him a new directive. We find this later on. But in his new directive is do anything in the best interest of the company.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like that's been sort of like it supersedes everything previously. But so Andy feels kind of sinister. But you're right, like the Ian Holm character just feels outright evil at this point. As it gets worse and worse, because he still says, "Make the right decision, do this, do that." But this then opens up a second question for me. Okay, do what's right for the corporation. Do what's right for Wayland Yutani. Okay. Well, apparently this is the thing. This goo, right? Whatever was in this, they spent a shit ton of money, and in Aliens, they keep talking about the dollar value associated with the lost ship and everything else. There's always a dollar value associated with everything. They spent the money to go and retrieve this alien xenomorph that was in a cocoon in outer space, bring it back. They paid for this space station. They paid for the crew. They paid for all the experiments. It went wrong. And no one in the Yutani Corporation thought we should probably send a set of Space Marines out to go get whatever's on there.
But that's what I was saying about the setup.
But they're
Like,
yeah,
where it's
exactly.
like
But
we've
they're going to
spent all
go.
this money, generations worth of, research and, genetic. We've got all this material, these aliens that we know what they're willing to do. And there's clearly a ship on the surface.
Well, it's a
You can't tell
Yutani.
me that
Yeah,
that there's a mining colony on the surface. Send somebody up to adjust the trajectory of the space station. We know Wayland Yutani doesn't care about. So again, it's like the central premise of this. The alien physiognomy doesn't make any sense. I mean, the space station doesn't make any sense. Everything about the setup of this film and how this world works is stupid beyond belief.
well, there's a
But
line
the
where
basic premise is
doesn't work.
just
Well, this
ridiculous.
is the thing. They said that they went up at some point in the ship for whatever purpose. They were doing something, and they spotted this ship, and they realized that it's not a ship; it's a space station. But later on, there's a line where Rook says he is now, since they've reactivated him and they've reactivated the ship, they have sent a message to Wayland's headquarters, and when they receive it in 6 weeks, they're going to send somebody out, and blah 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 blah. So that's why he wants them to take the goo back down to the planet so that Wayland Yutani can come and retrieve the goo. But there's in my head, I'm saying like, so no one thought to send a message during the fuck up with the alien
Right.
breaking out in the beginning. That he didn't think to send this version of Rook didn't think to send a message before it all went pear-shaped. That doesn't sound right to me.
Well,
This is all
and they know from the surface that spaceship or space station is going to crash into the rings in
yes, 36 hours. He gives it 36 hours.
right? So they know from the surface. So even if you haven't gotten any transmission from the space station, there's no transmission from the space station, and
Yeah.
on the surface they're like, it's going to crash. Maybe we should send somebody up there.
Yeah.
Again, the more you think about this, now even worse, you were talking about Andy's motivation, and what's his name? The other android,
Rook.
Rook. Okay, so I mean, I agree that Johnson's performance is amazing.
Hmm.
But even Andy's motivation doesn't really make sense. So, like, Rook starts by warning. He seems as if he cares about the humans, right? And he says, they're too emotional. That's what happened to us. I want to prevent this from happening again. Okay. By the end, Rook is just a Machiavellian trying to kill them left and right.
Well,
Doesn't really make sense.
I feel that was intentional from the beginning. Because
Okay, maybe.
his realization is I need someone to go collect the goo and take it back down to the planet. So the more of them that's alive, the better the chances of us retrieving the goo and taking it back down to the planet. I believe that's his intention from the get-go.
Okay, but first of all, there are simpler ways of accomplishing that,
Yes.
right? Like, for one thing, hey, hey guys, adjust the trajectory of the space station so it's not going to crash in the next, 3 hours after the shuttle bay crash, right? Like, maybe protect the space station. Hey kids, I'll make you a deal. I'll tell you how to get off. All you have to do is keep this place from
Mm.
crashing, deal, right? Let's get along. Uh, even Andy, I mean, convince them to put the goo in an injection pod or something that goes
Yeah.
down to the surface. There's got to be some way that's less convoluted than this. Andy, who's acting in the interest of the company, is also kind of protecting them.
Mm.
And I like this dynamic of like, you're a different person. What allegiance do I have for you? What allegiance do I have for synthetic? I like that dynamic, but he doesn't seem like he's really like doing what's in the best interest of the company. Like he should be totally colluding with the other android, and he's not.
Well, it should show more of a conflict between his two protocols, 1 and 2, because one is protect and do anything for the company. The second one is do anything to protect Rain. So like they should come into conflict at some point, and he should have to make that decision. I don't really feel that happens. But you're right. This whole thing kind of feels convoluted. Where even and this is the thing I hate with all these kinds of films. For example, right, let me just give you an example. So where I work at the moment, one of the things that I am looking at is disaster recovery and business continuity. So we are looking at our server estate and our systems network, a system sort of estate, and saying, is what we have in place in the case of an emergency enough to allow us to continue doing work? Right? So we've got like server failovers and emergencies and alerts and blah 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 blah. Right? All these things we're looking at the moment, and we've got them in place, but we're looking to upgrade them, that sort of thing. So if I'm doing that and I work for a simple construction company, surely a satellite in space that's working on this super secret thing and super important thing should be like, right, we've got all these disaster recovery mechanisms in place. We've got this. We know that the goo is really important, so it needs to go into these things need to happen. Like it needs to go into lockdown. It needs to like. It always feels like they've just never thought any of this stuff through because you need to have a plot happen, and because it never is there. Oh, our disaster recovery plan was that maybe someone would find us and not try and find us, like we're off the grid or whatever. I don't know. It just feels so, again, we're talking contrived, where I'm sort of saying, so no one else on the planet saw this space station. No one
Right.
important, and like no one at the level of the corporate, because we know that like Weyland-Yutani drop off supplies and they talk about this and it does this thing. No one has seen that this space station is there. It just appeared out of bloody nowhere. They're the only ones going up. No one else is gone. That's fucking weird that they've taken that ship up. They're not coming back. Like, no one reports it. Nothing happens. There's no follow up. And also, they say how high up this. You see, they've gone up above the planet, right? When this all blows up at the end, it's kind of big. Surely you'd see that from the surface, maybe in part. I don't know, but I don't know. It just feels very sort of Weyland-Yutani seems like both the most oppressive and, operationally organized organization, but also kind of fucking useless all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, there are shades of that in the other films, but this is like, cubed,
Yeah.
where it's like they're arch evil and also arch incompetent.
Yeah.
So I'm not really scared of them.
No.
They're just kind of incompetent. Um, But I agree with all of that, and I think that whether you look at the real plot, which is not a bunch of kids do this, but start with the space station, start with the backstory, and explain what the actual story is. It is mind-bendingly fucking stupid beyond imagination. But it's not just that the actual plot, the central plot of the station and what it's been doing is dumb. A Batman villain building this with, facehuggers on every corridor that are released automatically. I mean, but it's also that, the alien life cycle doesn't make sense anymore. It is whatever you need for the scene at the moment. The two androids, have whatever motivation you need at the moment. Everything is whatever you need at the moment to tell the central horror story of the main teen characters. And if that means speeding, or not teenagers, but 20-year-olds, it's a horror movie, and everything else is secondary. And this is how you make bad horror movies. Okay, this is not just a problem with destroying the Alien franchise for the sake of the dumb story you wanted to tell. It's also just like, all right, we're going to go into the horror movie. There's a demon, but then the rules don't apply. Suddenly characters are acting, in a way that's not motivated, doesn't really make sense in order to get to the next horrific, gross out scene or whatever.
Yeah.
This is not just a problem as an Alien fan. This is just a problem with basic storytelling.
Yes, I agree.
As long as you have no brain, it's okay.
Well, it's not even that. It's kind of like, the thing is, visual. Cause in the moment, I will admit, like, as I reflect on this, and as I've watched it and I've thought back on it, like, I've become more irritated by this film, and I've gone, actually, no, this is really stupid. I don't like this. In the moment when I left the cinema, there were moments I'm like, uh-oh, and they get more. They get more as the film goes on. Like, by the end of the film, I'm just going like, oh no, this is.
Yeah, we'll get to the ending.
But up to this bit where they get to the goo, and even with the goo, I'm like, okay, fine. Like, they're going to tie it into Prometheus and Covenant and whatever that is, fine. They're still canon, bollocks to that, but fine, right? That's now your conceit. You've got to get to that point. Fine.
I need to interject something because it's not really relevant to this discussion, but there is an Alien TV series that's going to debut next year.
Yes.
It is helmed by Noah Hawley, who is a genius, hit and miss, but a fucking genius. And it looks like it's going to be good and interesting. Okay. That is an expensive project, right? Somewhere around the budget of this movie, around $100 million for a season. Okay. It's planned to go 3 seasons. In the canon of that TV show, which takes place before the first Alien, that is Prometheus and Covenant are not in continuity. So what Fox is doing is just saying, make us another fucking Alien movie. What? Prometheus is going to be in continuity? Sure, do whatever. At the same time, we're going to spend an equivalent amount of money, if not times 3 for 3 seasons, on a separate project that takes place in a separate continuity.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I just had to interject that. Just
no,
to
it's a good point.
How brainless
this
corporate strategy is.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with this.
You were saying it takes place in the Prometheus.
This takes place in the Prometheus verse. Let's call it that, right? But
God.
One of the things this is where, up until now, there's been a couple of nostalgia callbacks, right? And yeah, you've had Ian Holm but I don't mind that, and for exactly the same reasons. Like, we've met multiple versions of Bishop. So, fine, I'm comfortable with that. There are multiple versions of Ash. That makes total sense to me. In fact, I appreciate that because it does say they're a production unit, that these synthetics are made production. I'm happy with that. I like that. Cool. But then they make this, and there's also some, like, dialogue cues, callbacks and stuff. And again, I'm like, okay, they're kind of small. They're insignificant. I'm not going to worry about it. Da da da. The moment they get into this lab, and then they're like, oh, we've got to do this thing now. Now we've got a new mission, whatever, next level. Here's the goo. The goo's got to get off the ship because that's now the mission. Hey, oh, pulse rifles exist. Cool. All right, good. Happy with that. Not a problem. It's an earlier version of a pulse rifle because we're 30 years before Aliens, so I like that. But these ones have, and this is
Hmm.
what these ones actually have auto um
Auto
targeting,
aiming, right?
which the ones in the heavy equipment did in Aliens, but not the pulse rifles. All right, fine, different versions. Not going to moan about that too much. I like the fact it actually gives her an auto. This sort of dresses a point for me. I'm glad that they don't do an Aliens Ripley thing where all of a sudden she's a badass. She's got an auto aiming, so this is actually going to give her um an out.
An
So she's
advantage.
an
Yeah.
advantage. I'm happy with that. Still feels a little bit like a computer game conceit where it's sort of like
Yes.
you're gonna have auto aim. All right, cool. We're on easy mode. Fantastic. Um, but then they literally have a scene where she's like holding it, and they're gonna mimic the scene with Ripley and Hicks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, my eyes are rolling so far into the back of my head that I'm like, oh no, we've entered this part of this film now, and it's not gonna stop. Rain is going to
Yeah.
come. Rain is now going to be wearing a set of clothing that is her silhouette mimics Sigourney Weaver from Aliens. We're going to have dialogue moments again and again that sort of reference different
Hmm.
parts of different films. That's going to end with. I almost
Oh
wanted
God.
I wanted to throw something at the screen when, and I know I'm jumping her forward, and we'll come back. But the
Uh-huh.
moment Andy comes flying
Hmm.
down the elevator
Elevator
shaft with
shaft.
his pulse rifle, shoots an alien and like lands, and then says, "Get away from her, you
I said,
bitch!"
get away
Oh
from her,
yeah.
you bitch.
Oh Jesus
Hmm.
Christ!
Yeah, I mean it's like a parody, that was really, really painful and
Awful
terrible.
choice.
Yeah.
Awful
Oh,
choice.
beyond imagination. I'm glad we agree on this. But I also find myself with all of these references, like up until that point, I can kind of
Yeah.
forgive some of them or whatever. That is just egregious. So, I have this, I'm a writer and I have this thinking, it's like do you watch Prometheus and Covenant first? Right? It's that like kind of like, okay, Star Trek should work where you watch them in chronological order,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you should start with Enterprise right now, and go in order. And except for the new stuff, it pretty much works, right?
Yeah.
But they kind of throw that away where it's like, okay, we're on
Discovery all of a
Strange New
sudden.
Worlds, and
Yeah.
we're going to reference events from later. So it's like, well, I'm always bothered by this. And there were easy ways around this, but I'm always bothered by this sort of thing of like watch order.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what order do you watch this in? You cannot watch this until
After
after
Aliens.
you've seen Aliens.
Well, no, that line doesn't make sense unless you've watched Aliens.
Yes,
So
exactly.
this is the
And
problem. Yeah. No. Yeah.
and things about alien physiognomy don't make sense. Well, like Andy has instantly realized, oh, I know the pregnant woman isn't infected because there's no dead facehugger at the base. Because
Yeah.
he's seen like three, So he's like, oh, okay, he says that. We're still seeing that for the first time in Aliens. So you have to watch this after Aliens. This is clearly designed to be watched after Aliens. So but so that's kind of a like watch order kind of problem. And I think that's the wrong way to make
So
prequels or inequals.
no, I agree.
But
So
but there's a deeper problem, which is this makes it retroactively that Ripley, apparently not knowing what Andy said here, was
references
doing
him.
homage to his line.
This is the problem I have with all these things. If this you say about the watch order, and this is the thing with Star Wars, isn't it? Do you watch it
Hmm. Mhm.
prequels, original, sequels? Right? Is
Mhm.
that how you watch it? Episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Cool. Well, that's the story order. That's in universe. It starts with the events of Phantom Menace and then works through until you get to Rise of Skywalker. Fine. All right. Watch it in that order. But then that sort of raises questions there because you sort of say, oh, but they don't know that here and they know that here. And then, like there's
Mhm.
those little the comics have addressed all these things apparently, but fine. But now the alien.
Well, and you're not surprised by Darth Vader's Luke's father.
Exactly.
Is
Yeah.
the main one. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you end up with this is exactly the same, where a film, and I think because this is a film made for the cinema, all right? And what I mean by this is it's made for you to go, hey, in the cinema and then leave, right? But when these things hit home cinema, 2 generations from now, if people are still talking about these things, no one's going to say, they'll go, oh, the events of this take place between Alien and Aliens. When this is on Disney, right, and this will be on Disney Plus, there will be there'll be 2 rows in the
Right.
um in the
Alien
collection.
page.
In the
Yeah.
Alien collection, right? They will have release order, and then
Mhm.
they will have what they will refer to as the Alien chronology. They do it with Marvel, all right, and they've done it with
Right.
Star Wars. So they'll have the Alien chronology, and someone's going to go, "Yeah, I should watch." Someone's new to this and go, "Oh, I'm going to watch it in story order, chronology." That's makes the most sense. Start with Prometheus, go to Covenant. All of a sudden, we're completely abandoning that story, and we're going to go to a bunch of truckers in deep space. Fine, and then we're going to go to this, and they'll go, "Get away from her, you bitch." Makes no sense because they're genderless
Right.
drone aliens. Then we're going to jump to Aliens,
right.
which takes place 36 years later, and you're going to go, "Oh right, so Weyland Yutani knows about aliens or the xenomorphs
Right.
and their life cycle and the damage they can do to massive institutes." Yet they're going to question Ripley, not believe her,
Mhm.
unless they're lying to her, which seems insane. Burke then orchestrates a thing where they go in and search for the ship, which then results in the sort of the catastrophe at LV-426. Then
Except
they
this
sent
time he knew that those aliens existed because they've done
apparently
like tons of
yeah
research on it.
yeah
Like
yeah they've sent out
research which hasn't even been done by Alien Resurrection.
well yes exactly because they're trying to do this thing in Alien Resurrected 200 years into the future. Well, actually, 200 and something years, so 250
So
years,
60, yeah, almost.
yeah, 250 years before Alien Resurrection, we had more research, better
Mhm.
technology, and more advances in alien development.
That's right.
It's insane how crap this has become now.
Well, this is the problem with prequels, right?
Yes.
Look, I mean, I write comic books. They're sci-fi comic books. I write, over a 10,000 year span, and I do it all out of order. I have a timeline, in my head. I know, I get it to match up better than this. You're throwing $100 million in a movie, and you can't bother to get the stuff right. But this is where I just feel like again and again, the Alien franchise, it's like they're only focused on the next movie.
Hmm.
And, here it's just a horror movie with these characters. Anything about the physiognomy, alien, everything about the space station and the setup, everything about how it fits into the actual Alien franchise, none of that matters to anybody involved in this production. They want to homage, we got lots of, this is the thing. We're in this like weird space where everybody's got to cater to the fans and talk about like how
Yeah.
much they love Alien and they love aliens and this is a mesh of it and we really tried to capture that feel. Yeah, you did some homages, but and the tech looks,
Mm.
oddly consistent with the first Alien. But you get stuff like, the blue mist that has only been seen in the first Alien, which seems to be what triggers the eggs in the first Alien.
Hmm.
Like the eggs don't have any sensory organs, the mist somehow kind of triggers these eggs. Here we have that blue mist, except it's not needed for anything, and it's not clear why it's there, and it doesn't do anything.
It seems
There
to
are no
trigger
eggs around,
no, but it does seem to trigger drone xenomorphs in
right?
that part. But again, we see in Aliens 36 years later that doesn't exist or happen because they're actually able to sense, much like, let's
Hmm.
say they're much like the facehuggers themselves, can probably trace heat and movement. So they'll come out the walls and attack you. So they don't need the blue mist. It just looks cool. Fine. But this whole thing where they come out the lab and they get to this corridor and they're like, oh shit, the corridor's full of aliens and things. and you hear the noise, and someone then says, you hear the K, I think her name is, the pregnant woman she's been resined up.
Mm.
Why? Because we've already seen it. Like, because she's pregnant, doesn't seem to it won't infect her. Like, I don't understand why they're waiting for something. Is she bait to
Well,
bring those in? I think.
and they say it's because she's pregnant that she wasn't infected.
Yeah.
But the aliens grow in their chest.
Yeah.
What's in her uterus doesn't matter, right? I mean, she's got different hormones in her system, but that shouldn't kill
Or bother
a
the
chest bursting
no.
alien. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's confused, but this leads to go on.
Well, so they get the pregnant character, Kay, back to the ship, but Rain has had to abandon Andy in the process. Andy has been left behind to a convenient last minute cutscene attack, and then she sees Andy on the monitor, and even though he's a different personality now, decides to go back for. And this, I'm like, okay, you're repeating Ripley going back for Newt.
But you've missed one thing.
Okay.
So one of the things that they highlight is they've got the goo. She gets injured, doesn't she? She gets the Kay gets injured.
Well, Kay is she's injured because she's been pulled up by the alien and put in a wall.
Yes. So she's losing blood and all sort of stuff. So they say, we're going to get you back to the cryo chamber, the status chamber, and we're going to, we'll get you in that, and that will put you in suspended animation, and when we can get you fixed up when we get back. Fine. Like, okay, happy with that, not a problem. Understand that. But then they also introduce this element of Andy saying, I can't do anything for her, but if she injects the black goo, which Rook has been saying is the next step in evolution, it'll make us better at mining in space. Capitalism is king and we should all be more efficient, blah, blah, blah.
It was Wayland's dream.
Yeah. So she ends up injecting herself because she believes it's going to save her baby and herself. So she actually injects herself with a vial of the black goo.
I'm not sure why.
Because she thinks it's going to say, she thinks it'll protect her before, so she can get to the status chamber. That's literally what she's told. So she makes that decision to protect her and her baby.
I'm not sure why she gets, because she gets the goo.
Yes.
Back down in the heart of the ship. She's already made it to the to the vehicle with the stasis chamber. Only at that point is she's like, well, I've been abandoned. Might as well inject this goo now. Like, you've made it to the finish line.
Yeah. Get in. You'll be fine. Get in. Yeah. So yeah, she injects herself with the goo, and then, as you say, she gets put into the status chamber, and then we've lost Tyler. Tyler's been stabbed by an alien tail, but she sees that she could go back and save Andy, who's had one of his sort of episodes. He has this sort of like,
well, she being Rain, the main character.
Rain, sorry, yeah, Rain is the main character. Decides to go back and save Andy and reboot him, and take out his Weyland-Yutani programming, this sort of disk thing. So she's now going to do the Ripley thing, go back down, and there's a shot where they're like, oh, instead of it being blue behind her, we're going to use red and give you a silhouette of someone with a short sleeve t-shirt, trainers, and a pulse rifle. And again, I'm like, my eyes are rolling so much that I could power a car at this point. It's ridiculous. Yeah, she saves him.
Well, she goes back, and the aliens that surrounded Andy have injured him critically, but they have all apparently left.
Yeah.
And so she arrives, and suddenly all the aliens are gone. And she goes down a corridor, and the aliens are approaching. And I mean, this is one of the worst scenes. So she's at the end of the corridor, and the aliens are now approaching, having magically disappeared whenever the plot wants them to. Now they're magically approaching, and she and Andy kind of like hold hands at the end of the corridor and, basically prepare for death. Andy tells one of his dad jokes about zero gravity, and she suddenly realizes, oh yeah, the station gravity that was going in and out at the beginning, not exactly sure why, but whatever, You know,
Oh no, I like that. That scene of when they come on
I
and the gravity's not on. Brilliant. I liked it
no,
originally.
I think
Mm.
it works, but I'm not
Mm.
sure they have some plot justification for it,
Mm-hmm.
like how the system's cycling or something.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying it's a thin justification.
Mm.
But that's obviously the foreshadowing for this scene. All of that is designed to set up the scene where she turns off the gravity and as the aliens attack, and that lets her with the pulse rifle mow down a slew of aliens and facehuggers. First of all, how the fuck did zero gravity affect that fight?
No,
Why
well,
was you know
let's scrap back before you start that. I want to ask a further question because this is a space station, right? This is a working environment. Why is there a button anywhere
yeah
in any corridor that affects zero gravity? Why? What?
Good question.
That's insane. That health and safety like problems left,
Hope
right, and
nobody
center.
trips at the door there,
Yeah,
or this
bends over
gravity goes off
accidentally.
for the
Oh,
entire
press! I just
station.
pressed the anti-gravity button. Everyone's going to have major problems across the station. That is ridiculous. That is so that was my eyes are back in my skull right now. So the way it helps, this is there are two. I can tell you why it helps and why they do it, because they have
I
pointed out.
utterly rejected it.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Andy points out two things when he's the Rook Andy, right? He gives him the pulse rifle and says, "But you can't use it
Right.
because two reasons. We're in a space station, bullets flying around, or pulse, whatever they are, pulse bullets flying around, a bad thing because they could damage the hull. But also, you can't shoot them because they have acid for blood. We've seen the damage it does. We're also in a space station. It will result in the space, us losing decompression. So, Andy, when they take off the gravity, doesn't seem to affect the bullets. Fine, but it stops the blood from falling to a surface. So it keeps the acid blood in the air to generate the last level of this stupid game.
Yeah, I mean, except I don't know why they were ready to give up and accept death. And suddenly, I mean, the aliens can move in zero gravity fine. We've seen them in other films moving along the ceiling, and they advance perfectly fine here.
And on the hull of ships.
Right. I mean, so like, you know, how was it's like, wait a minute, we can release the gravity that'll give us some kind of advantage, and we're gonna, fire these pulse rifles inside. The gravity hasn't made the rifle safer.
No, it just stops all it does is stops the blood from touching the acid blood from touching a surface. That's all it does.
Except it's going to happen anyway.
Yes.
Okay, so they're firing and firing.
That's because
and now
that's
mowing
because
down the
yeah,
aliens.
that's because this is a computer game level, not a film plot.
No, this is not a film. I mean,
Yeah.
this is this is not a story. Um, okay, so then they mow down the aliens. Okay, so I'm already like, why the fuck were the aliens not there? Now they're advancing. Now this is your Hail Mary moment, in the horror movie where you realize you can do X, except X makes no sense here.
Mm.
And then comes one of the worst moments in any outer space movie as they try to maneuver through the streams of alien blood, acid, in zero gravity. And I'm thinking, like, you know what happens when you spill a drop of soda on a space station? We've all seen the video. It spreads everywhere. It gets on everything. There's zero chance of ever maneuvering through it. And that's a drop of soda. These
Yeah.
are spirals of alien blood. But somehow they're able to maneuver through it.
Yeah, but also one of the things that this ignores that point, which is very good. But also, gravity doesn't make things stand still.
Yes.
It just means it's not pulled down to a single surface. But if something's spraying out, it doesn't stop the force.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuff will continue to go in that direction. So it's still going to hit all the surfaces. Might be a little slower
Right.
because there's nothing actually causing, whatever. But it doesn't just go and then sort of stay there. If you explode something, if you were to, if Gallagher goes into a space station and hits a melon or a watermelon with a hammer with zero gravity, shit still goes everywhere. but instead of it just slows down a bit. It's yeah.
Right.
I'll
Yeah,
tell you,
I mean, apparently all the aliens as they were shot were spinning in a perfect circle without any, in a perfect rotation along one axis and moving only that way to produce these spiral patterns that aren't hitting any walls. You're right.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I was in the screening with I went on my own. There was a guy sat like 2 or 3 seats away from me, and when this happened, well, it was actually the next scene that happened. We kind of caught each other's eyes, and we were both like, you could tell both of us were thinking, this is this is dumb. Like this is unfortunately like we know it was kind of like a look between two. He was the same age as me, but the same age as us, really. Sort of like there was just these older guys going, "This is kind of stupid," and I can't believe that I'm watching this.
Yeah.
Um, because then they ballet float through space to avoid it. They use the gun to shoot to push themselves
The
away.
last bullets.
It's so what's funny is like I've seen reviews that go like, "This is insane. This is this is incredible." The third act, which we'll get to the finale, which I kind of hate as well.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but this scene is literally, I was inside. I was chuckling to myself, thinking, "This kind of reminds me of like this is what you'd see in a Saturday morning cartoon.
Hmm.
Like this is what I would expect from Transformers." Or Ghostbusters, or do you know what I mean? Like they'll do something like.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, I think Ghostbusters did this with slime in a spaceship. I'm sure they did this actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing about the scene that's any good,
No,
except for that brief sort of like accepting death, before they decide to
that's
turn
kind of
off the
nice.
gravity.
Again, and
Right.
well shot. Love that
A
scene.
little moment.
Yeah,
But I mean, the aliens disappearing and then reappearing, the zero gravity, the blood, the ammo running out. I mean,
her
traveling
face,
through
her face.
all of this is
Kaylee
terrible.
Spaney like plays Rain. What's hilarious is the face that she makes when she's shooting them left, right, and center. All I could think of is they've told her go and watch Sigourney Weaver's performance in Aliens.
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
What's the face that she makes? Go and make the same face. And it was
Yeah,
just
so
it was so obvious that I was just like, oh, this has got to stop.
yeah, again, the reference just seeing. But then we have this fight on the elevator shaft
Yeah,
where the gravity's still out, and so they, hurl themselves up the elevator shaft. They're barely hitting the walls. Like, I mean, this is like the best, most precise jumps ever. I don't buy this, and she's desperately trying to reach Andy, as the gravity is turning back on, and it doesn't happen. And then an alien catches her in mid-flight, and I'm thinking, like we all know from Superman, like that would break your back, but here
yeah.
it doesn't. And then the elevator falls down, and smashes the and Andy shoots it and says, "Get away from her, you bitch." And
Yeah.
I mean, all that this whole climactic fight in the elevator, what should be the climax, is truly just abysmal from start to finish.
We've said one of the things that we've touched on, and I think it's becoming a bit of a bugbear for me, which is maybe it's something I need to address with myself, is geography.
Hmm.
Is you need to, we've said if this is going to be a computer game, you should be able to pull up a map that says you are here and this is where you're going and all sort of stuff. One of the things that I'm sort of, it starts well, this film does, because I think it does give you a really, when they're on the Remus side and they're like, they've clocked on with the ship and they've got to get through this really tight shaft and they make a Bishop reference where they're squeezing through the little shaft. I got that. Um, all that's cool. I'm like, okay, that's kind of, bit nuts. And they've got to get through. The gravity's not working. But I'm saying, okay, I get where they've gone, right? I understand how this part of the space station works. I
Hmm.
get it. It's circular. I can get it all. I can track where those cryo chambers are in comparison to the ship. I get what the plan is. Happy with all that. By the end of the film, I've got no fucking clue. I'm like, they've got to get up this elevator shaft that's like tens of floors up, but don't appear to have come tens of floors down. So why have
Is
they?
this in
What?
that central spire? If so,
Yeah,
is this
where's
part of
how does this?
Romulus or Remus? How does this fit into the Batman villain plan of
Yeah,
this
how
space
does this get
station?
them back to the? How does this get them back to the cargo bay with the ship? I don't know. Like all of a sudden, I'm just sort of like this. Just feels like someone said an elevator shaft would be a cool place to have a fight.
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, just like it'd be cool to have them going through alien blood and zero gravity. I mean, this is all like some 12-year-old's idea of what would be cool.
Yeah.
Never mind the logic.
Yeah. And that's what I'm feeling right now is this whole ending is chaotic, but not in a good way where I'm sort of going like, oh, I'm with the chaos. Like it feels like battle, it feels like war. This is like I don't know who's where, why they're there, who's doing what. Andy comes out of nowhere with his stupid line and sort of falls on them with his pulse rifle. Fuck. And then they end up going back to the ship, and then it goes, just so you know we haven't referenced Alien Resurrection properly yet, so let's do that for 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, so then you get the crash into the rings,
Mm-hmm.
which,
Right, again,
like rings are not a solid surface.
no.
Okay. I mean, rings are made up of tiny particles. It's like I always my pet peeve of like meteor
Mm.
storms or an asteroid belt. And it's like, gotta dodge through these asteroids. No, those asteroids are miles and miles apart from
Yeah.
each other, right?
I will
Rings
say again
are
though, I will say no, sorry, they try to
it
show it
looks
as being
cool.
it looks ace. It looks
Okay. But
fantastic.
but then, it's like physics doesn't work this way.
Yeah.
Like you've got a bunch of tiny little particles that doesn't create a solid surface that just is like destroying anything that hits it. Clearly they think this is the surface of a planet.
Weirdly, I'm almost willing to let that go because of how good this looks visually. And they do have like
Yeah.
blocks of ice and other bits sticking out and stuff. So I'm kind of cool with this bit, as in the
I
visual of
I
it
I
grating
kind
into
of
the kind of
am for a little while.
yeah.
And then when it's used later on for a second time as a second threat, then
Mm,
I'm like, okay, this is gilding Lily. And then you see the exterior shots of the space station grinding against the rings, and you realize it's like 30 minutes later, and it's still grinding
yeah.
against the surface, quote unquote, of the rings, like it's skidding on the surface of a planet. And I'm just like, no, they do think what I thought they thought,
Yeah.
right?
I,
I
I
mean,
don't mind that. I'm gonna not round
oh,
up. I kind of like
it's
that. It's fine.
unforgivable. This is the thing I object to the most. It's like it is the Last Jedi, where it's like, momentum does not work like this in outer
Mm,
space. It's one thing like when we're reviewing a movie from the 50s, and it's like, right, they don't know what rings are like yet, right? Like I can kind of get that. 2024, man, like I I
yeah.
cannot forgive it. Um, but
I'm
they get
less.
off on
I'm
this
forgiving.
cargo.
Yeah. I'm forgiving on
Yeah.
that. But they do get off on this on the cargo ship, and then they
And
find
and to the audience, if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're not convinced that it's bad, we have a trump card for you.
so Kay gives birth, and they're like, "Oh, we haven't had a Prometheus kind of thing either," which is, I feel, what this is because there's the birthing thing in Prometheus as well, um, with what's it, Rapace's character. So they have that. Kay gives birth to this thing.
Again,
It's
on
called
an accelerated
on an
timetable, but
accelerated like
who cares?
everything.
Because the
Yeah,
goo can do whatever you want, right?
magic goo does what it wants, kills her. Get away from me!
Well,
And she
yeah.
does. So, well, she dies
Well,
basically. It eats her. Actually, is what it does.
actually, first she survives and she gives birth to this like egg, and I think it's done really well. It
Yeah, yeah,
shows like the horror of birth, and there's this weird alien egg, and there's a baby inside. Like, what is that? K photography or
yeah.
whatever, with like babies in like cabbage patches or something. It looks like that, a Giger version of that,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. But then the babies, the acid the baby is in makes it fall into the cargo hold, which is filled with grain for some
Why is the
reason.
egg filled with acid blood?
And then the main character Rain goes down into the cargo hold and finds the egg, and it's open and it's cool. that the grain shows the footprints, which is very cinematic. Except
Visually,
then we see,
excellent.
right? Again, the visuals are great. And then we realize that the alien has now grown from a human-looking baby to a 12-foot tall engineer alien human hybrid.
We've got to stop this.
It has not eaten any of the grain, by the way, to generate all that mass in 2 minutes because we see the footprints of the grain. There's no big section missing that's all black.
No.
It has just transformed in 2 minutes from a baby to an alien engineer. And when that thing showed up, it's funny you mentioned the look you exchanged in the theater. When that thing showed up, laughs erupted from the theater.
Oh, it looks. I don't like the alien human hybrid from Alien Resurrection. This is somehow worse. Like I don't know, but you say the fact that it's generating, it eats the mother, it then sort of. I don't understand.
It has like a little organic tube from its mouth instead of like. And look, whatever we think about the design work, it looks weird. It does look alien. It's not. I don't think it's the worst design ever. It is kind of creepy and it has that uncanny kind of look to it. Whatever we think of the design work there, and it's clearly an engineer. I love that the director in interviews was like, "Hey, there's a reference to the engineers. I hope people got it." Yeah, we got it, motherfucker.
It's a bit like throwing. This is throwing something in someone's face and saying, "Did you notice what I just did there?" Yes, I'm wiping it off as we speak. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like Michael Bay saying, like, there were explosions in the climax. I hope people notice them.
I wanted to be subtle this time. Yeah.
No, I mean, but the acceleration of this time span, of this growth. I mean, this is just
Awful.
so truly horrible, and it kills the mother.
But then this is right. So this is the problem. It looks again the visuals, and there are some really good shots actually in this. Right, I do appreciate some of the shots they've got, and they've got Rain's now got like a freeze gun instead of a flamethrower and all this other stuff. So again, I'm liking some of the ideas they've got. I think it's shot incredibly well, and there's some shots in this that are great. And again, but then this thing stands up, and I'm like, oh. Okay, I mean this is a real guy that's done mocap for this and stuff, and he's a very very tall and sort of, you know, he's got a look of it, whatever. But like, it looks alien, it looks weird, but instantly I'm like, oh, cool. This is an alien. Like this is a human engineer alien thing. It's weird. But I'm not threatened by it. This is not what I came to see. I hate this. I hate everything with the engineer. So instantly I'm out.
Yeah.
Instantly I'm
right.
like, I'm done.
I knew you would be.
I'm done. This is I'm done. Sorry. But then they go and say, we haven't done enough references yet. So we're gonna have Rain trapped into an area and she's gonna climb into a spacesuit in her underwear. And again, I'm like, I might as well I might as well leave at this point because you've got nothing new to say. You've got no new ideas. I've seen this all before. I'm bored now. You've lost me at this. This finale completely loses me.
Oh,
it gets horrible. Oh, and it gets worse. Oh, and it keeps getting worse. Like I have no interest in any of the action in the last sort of 10 to 15 minutes. Don't care.
Neither do I.
Completely disengaged because I'm like, oh, this is what you're telling me now, that you can't even come up with a decent ending, so you're gonna copy everybody else. You've looked over everybody's shoulder and you've copied their homework. Well done.
Well, but I mean, it's like you know what they're thinking. They're thinking, well, this is a different hybrid, right? You've seen the two different alien human hybrids in Alien Resurrection, but this is an engineer one, dude.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't seen that before. And that's true. But again, like, this is not entertaining. This is not not only is this not what I want to see in an alien movie, which is subjective, and you can just say, shut up, Julian, this isn't made for you. That's fine. But again, the premise is that Batman villains have built a space station and spent years and tons of money developing alien technology that is way ahead of Alien Resurrection 250 years earlier. And that technology is like, again, the magic goo that can save your life, but it really accelerates a baby and within minutes turns your unborn child into an engineer alien human hybrid. How does any of that work? And then it grows in, 2 minutes.
Ugh.
I mean, it's just the magical bad plotting of this. I mean, if you want to do an engineer hybrid, do a proper sequel to Covenant and make it make sense within the context of experiments. Don't do it, you know, between Alien and Aliens. The Weyland-Yutani Corporation already had goo that, if injected into a pregnant woman, apparently produces this. I mean, how does this work? None of this makes any sense.
We don't know the
But
rules. The
that
rules aren't established. We don't know.
No.
Nobody cares. It's just so they can create references. And just in case we haven't established that, like, they've seen all the fucking Alien films, after that she blasts it out the airlock and it goes and gets disintegrated. Because that's what we do now. We blast things out of airlocks or into space. That's the way Alien films work. It gets disintegrated into the rings of the planet with the rest of the stuff, and she climbs back inside, and then we get her putting Andy into a status tube because they're going off to this fancy planet, and she's gonna why she's signing off, because
who's she talking to?
No one. This is the point. The point
Right.
of the reason that Ripley gives that signing off is because she is a part of a corporate entity, and she is leaving a black box recording hoping to be found.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point of the end of that film. Here's the information. If you find it, here's what happened. I'm signing off. Rain doing this, last survivor of the gobbledy gibbedy bubbedy ship, don't gives a shit. This is insulting, this ending. It's so sort of and what this made me think, and I'm going to go on to this point, right? I want to just make this point before. No, in fact, I'll save it for my final thoughts. But like, this is where I stepped out going. I was so conflicted with myself when I stepped out the cinema, because I was like, I really enjoyed some of the tension. I love the visuals. I think there are scenes in this that look fantastic. I loved all the stuff on the planet where, like, Weyland-Yutani is a bunch of bastards, but the contract thing didn't make any sense, and there's also the stuff. It kind of starts really well, and I like the design of the alien, but then it sort of hits a point where all it does is it tells you it's seen every other Alien film, and then as you said, like, what's the watching order has started to creep into my head since I've seen it, and I'm like, well, this doesn't actually fit into continuity now. Now I'm just sort of like, this is just annoying. And then you have the ending, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this film. Sorry. I'm like, this is a film that has some really good visuals in it, some really good moments, some actually pretty solid performances, but doesn't amount to anything.
Yeah. I mean, there's even the music's good too.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I think this
but other than that, I mean, turn the sound off. It would be a lot better. So this climax with the, I'm so sick of, you mentioned the airlock. What bothers me at least as much is this trope of, like, we're on the escape ship, but an alien's in here with us.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this so many times. Okay, so and then when I realized, I was like, oh, there are these moments when you're watching a bad movie where you think, oh God, I hope they're not going to do this. And then they do it. And you're just like, right, of course, because you're so stupid. Don't make this choice. And then they make it time and time and time again. I thought, all right, you've already done this horrible thing with the rings just to create a drama and put you on a timer. Please don't have the escape ship falling into the rings. I don't know how its trajectory got moved so it falls into the rings, but now it's falling into the rings too.
Oh.
So we can repeat that same drama yet again.
This was something I wanted to talk about, but I completely forgot about. You're right. Because there's a point in this where Rook says to Andy, put it into automatic, and basically I will, much like Bishop did in Aliens, he will pilot it down to the planet. Like they haven't got to do anything. He will take care of that, right? Safely guide them back down to the planet. And he does it to begin, but then they press a button that says, "No, we're taking over. We're going to manual." But then also, we also know that when the ship's in trouble, which is what's depicted at the very end of this shit film, the autopilot kicks in and prevents it from doing something. It saves the ship. The autopilot kicks in, right, and rights it. That's interesting. Why did that not happen when the Navarro kicked the steering column earlier on in the film when it was
Right.
colliding with the space station?
The
Surely
space station, and ends up
surely,
conveniently in the cargo bay.
yeah, surely that should have been like the autopilot took over then as well. Like, why
Okay,
did that not
but
do that then?
even to turn to an earlier scene, we saw that really cool scene when Andy gets the update and he starts glitching, you know,
Yes.
and everybody's like fighting the facehuggers, and I hate that they're beating the facehuggers with pipes and stuff, but you know, Andy's entertaining me and the music is great. It's shot like $1 million. You know, okay, she restores the original chip. It happens, it's overwritten instantly. He doesn't
Yeah.
glitch and just,
No.
again, this movie can't even keep to its own rules.
Yeah.
So when it wants the autopilot for plot reasons, it has an autopilot for plot reasons. But when it doesn't, it doesn't. When it wants Andy to need to take a minute to reboot, he has to take a minute to reboot because there's fighting going on. When it doesn't, you can't even say it takes a minute. Just make time pass so in 10 seconds. It doesn't, this film isn't even bothering to try to pretend that it's following its own rules from scene to scene.
No, I agree.
And then there's this whole drama of I can't eject the cargo hold with the grain in it,
the 4 levers,
right?
Yeah.
And so there's these 4 levers, and it's just like, this is such a video game, you know, this is, you know,
100%.
like, I mean, it just feels like such a stupid video game. And
Yeah, it
you're
does.
right. This clip at the end with, you know, her signing off like Ripley at the first Alien, you know, it's just like the "get away from her, you bitch," where that was said to a queen who was a female, as you pointed
Yes.
out.
Yes.
You know, so that made sense. Here it doesn't make sense, except
No.
bitch, I guess, in general. Here, you know, in the same way, her signing off made sense in a context. The context has been removed from all of these references, but the references are kept the same. Yeah, this is pretty much. I really felt like I wanted to like this film. Visually, it is amazing, but I really felt like, you know, it was, by the end of it, I was just boggled by how brain dead and ill to judge this is, and why anyone liked this or thought this was a good movie. It's objectively bad. I
Yeah.
do think these are objective plot problems. These are not quibbles. These are the central premise of the movie: is a Batman villain has made a space station, and on that space station they have engineered aliens,
Yeah.
the likes of which Resurrection could only dream, but they're perfectly content to let it fall into the rings, which are a flat surface like a planet. I mean, this is objectively what's happening in this plot.
Yes. There's 2 things. Yeah, I agree. By the way, everything you said, 100% and more. Like, the thing is, I went in. I went in having watched the trailer, and I was like, this looks good. It looked visually. I thought the trailer looked good. There was a couple of things I was like, I'm gonna let you know. A couple of things even in the trailer I was like, oh, okay, I'm not so sure about that, but fine. They're probably small. Everything else looks ace. Visually, this film is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The moment this film starts and you start with a drone ship picking out a cocooned alien and it shows you the Nostromo name on the side of the wreckage and the shit that the alien from the first film has cocooned itself into some, I don't know, coconut
I wasn't
thing.
even clear about that. I was
Yeah,
like,
that
well,
then
I don't
gets
know what I'm looking at.
that then well they cut it in half and you see the imprint of the alien in this thing. That's an uh-oh moment for me. That was instantly an uh-oh moment because okay, I know where this is going. So this brings up 2 things that has always bothered me. One that's more recently I've been thinking about, but one that's bothered me for a long time. Prequels are never good. Prequels for 2 reasons. Because time has passed, technology has passed, and so there is always the sort of the desire to sort of have more modern technology or whatever, and so it's kind of always out of step with whatever was made before. Well done to them for deciding not to do anything. I think this fits in very well between Alien and Aliens. Really impressed with how they stuck to the aesthetic and the design, and kept with that design work for the ships. Love it. Really impressed with that. The other thing you've got to do, though, is look at what has gone before so that you don't impact, or if you do impact, you build upon what is in the future so that if someone's going to watch it in order, it still tells the same story.
Right. And if anything helps you when you get to Alien, where you're
Yes.
like, oh, okay, maybe, something somewhere between Covenant and Alien, they knew that the Nostromo was going to encounter this. But, they've had other little kind of encounters along the way. I mean, it could actually wind up making Aliens make more sense,
It
right?
could. They could answer a lot of questions. Yeah.
If you do it right, and there might be a little bit of violence to the innocence of the alien plot and what we think about Weyland-Yutani, but that would be acceptable if it were kept the technology consistent, kept the physiology consistent, and actually led into Aliens.
Yes. But what they wanted to do is, well, we want to do a sequel to Prometheus and Comet. We want to close off the goo story so that we never have to worry about that again. That's what this does. But also tries to play in both pools, but doesn't seem to, I don't know, I don't know. It's so all over the place that, like say, this I will always, I defended Aliens and to you and I like the Ripley saga, right? I actually think we talked about Resurrection. Resurrection has tons of problems. Tons of problems. I hate the ending of it, right? But at least I would say there are parts of that visually it's very cool. I think it's got some great ideas. I think this fits into like the Resurrection mold where I'm going like, there's some great ideas here. Visually, I think it's cool. There's some good stuff I want to watch. But like I'm just almost offended by how stupid some of the stuff is in this by the end of it. The other thing that's kind of happened recently, and I think it's reached its zenith and can be done with now, is um, IP referencing and nostalgia.
Yeah.
Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine has killed it. That's it. Now it's done. All right. But the fact is that entire film is literally built around that and designed to sort of like have it as both a nostalgia thing and a joke. Like the whole film is designed to be like, do you remember that we did all this X-Men stuff in 20th Century Fox? Cool, wasn't it? Yeah, do you remember this? Like, here's this character and here's that character, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. Like, and so
It's like Chris Farley on SNL. Like,
yes,
you remember that? That
yeah,
was awesome.
exactly.
That's
But the
what we've
film,
turned movies into.
exactly. But that film is based around that, and because it's based in that as a premise, they play into that joke, and it works because it's literally based in that. They're taking the mick out of doing that. So it's like we're going to take this to the nth degree, and we're going to do it. The problem with Romulus is it thinks it's homaging things, but it's so clunky and clumsy with it that it actually damages your the watchability of this as a saga.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I kept thinking that we were going to talk, and you were going to say, I can't believe you defended, not as a good movie, but you defended Resurrection, and you're down on this.
Hmm.
And I really wrestled with that going into this. I've spent the week thinking about how am I going to justify that? Is that in fact justifiable? And what I've come down to is Resurrection is a B movie.
Yes.
And it kind of knows it's a B movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just waves its hand and says, oh yeah, we were doing some alien experiments, right? And it knows that's bullshit. It's techno babble on Star Trek where it's like, yeah, we know this is kind of nonsensical. We're just move past it, dude. This takes itself seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas I feel like, there's a lot of, you were mentioning Deadpool Wolverine. Don't think I would like that movie.
No, you wouldn't.
But the fact that, and I would probably have a problem with that it thinks that nudge nudge wink wink is enough to get away with doing exactly the things that it's criticizing and breaking Disney money for, while gently prodding its parent mother. Yeah, here, I sort of feel like, if you want to do Alien as a B movie, I'm down. Do something silly, go over the top. The alien physiognomy has never made sense. Just brush it away with some techno babble, and at least I've got, entertaining actors in action scenes. This one just thinks it's so smart, takes itself so seriously, and is so pretentious and mind-numbingly dumb. And I just I can't forgive that. And I cannot forgive the critics. I don't know what's wrong with criticism now. I don't know, like, I don't know if it's a new generation of critics, or
Possibly.
like, we've just dumbed down our expectations so much that
this film,
a Batman villain building a space station is fine.
Let me put it. I think it is fine, and that's not a problem. But there's been lots of that. This film is a Screen Rant article. That's what this film is. Top 10 references in Alien Romulus that you missed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this film boils down to by the end of this film. That's all it is. And that's to me, it's like when I watched this film, it came out and I was like, oh, that was cool, that was cool, that was cool. But the more I watched this on Wednesday, I think, the more I've sort of thought about it, and then is the more I've gone exactly like this. That was dumb, and I really didn't like that. And that scene with the floating acid is like stupid. The thing about Alien Resurrection is I don't like Alien Resurrection. I don't go back to it very often. I hate the ending of it, which is the main point. The ending is the problem for me. However, I will say, comparing it to Alien 3, and then Alien Resurrection, at least each of them said, here's what we're doing different. We're going to have, Alien. Oh, it's a small scale horror in space, haunted house, monster on the loose kind of thing. Aliens, big action film. We're going to do this. We're going to expand the lore, blah, blah, blah. Alien 3, we're going to have a grimy, gothic, story, going to bring the saga to a close. Alien Resurrection, B movie, 90s style B movie. It's doing something different. I will applaud it for doing something different, right? It didn't say, oh, I'm going to redo Alien 3 or Aliens or whatever. Like, it's, oh, no, we know what's going to happen, but we're going to do something weird and different. Like, epitomized by the fact that the way to get into their secure area in Alien Resurrection is to breathe into their security is based on you breathing into something. Kind of like that. That's one of my, I will admit, that's a cool moment in that film. But this film isn't anything new. This is not. There's nothing new in this film.
You see a mining camp. I mean, that was one of the things I liked kind of early on. I was like, I haven't seen this in other films. Right? Right, yeah. I have at least a little bit of sense of like what life is like outside of these spaceships, right? But you get a little bit in Aliens when Ripley goes back, but you don't really get a wider context, right?
Fine.
That's about as much as this film offers.
Yeah, but then it falls into nostalgia fare. Right, we're going to bring back Ian Holm. Right, we're going to have tons of facehuggers rather than, but the facehuggers running around. Okay, we're actually going to have something similar to Alien and Newt being attacked in the Medibay in Aliens. Right, we're actually going to reference dialogue constantly. And the games. Apparently there's references to the games in this as well, like Isolation and stuff, which we're going to talk about in the Patreon. Apparently there's references to that in this as well. I don't get those, never played the game. But the fact that like the references and homages later just become theft. It's not even like they're making a reference. It's like, oh no, we're gonna literally like smash you in the face and tell you we've watched an Alien film. And it's kind of at that point I'm just sort of like, you have no ideas. This was everything. This is exactly what I think is the problem now. I'm bored of this. I don't, oh yeah, you're right. Aliens is a good film. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to go back and watch Aliens. I'd rather watch.
Yeah, why didn't I watch that?
Yeah, exactly. That's all this film tells me by the end of this film is, Oh, the first two in this are really good. I'm going to go back and watch them again. Like that's all this film tells me.
Well, I was thinking of what is the equivalent of this? And imagine if somebody said, okay, the Terminator franchise is in trouble. We don't know how to proceed.
Yes, it is.
What we're going to do is we're going to make a film set between Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, the most beloved films. And it's going to have a bunch of young adults infiltrating a computer technology firm that is actually already has all the T-800s, all the T-1000s, and it already has all of the corridors have, the metallic exoskeleton one after another. And this is set in 1990, and this is the 1990 Skynet. It already has all of this shit, and they're going to fight them. And then we're going to have a female one show up and grow her breasts to reference, Terminator 3. And you'd be like, how does this fit into anything? How does this make any sense?
Do you know what's funny about all this, right? Because you're right, that would be awful, by the way.
But I think this is kind of doing the same thing.
It is.
Being
No, it is.
praised by critics.
Yeah. Two things have happened. What you just said there has actually triggered a thought in my head. But for example, there's a new Terminator comic series coming, right? And I'm always going to give them a look. And I said, okay, what's the plot? The plot is, and again, it's meant to follow the movie, canonically, whatever. Skynet realizes it's failed from the first two films, and so starts shooting Terminators into different periods in history to take out different members of the Resistance at different points. And I read that and was like, oh, so they're going to do Terminators in this part of history, in that part of history. And then instantly I said, but that doesn't work. Like, that's not just physics or whatever, but well, but the moment you do something like in the Old West and you kill a bunch of people, then you've literally just changed the events of a future comic that will result in the future Terminator. Like you can't do that. That's not how that works. So they're already doing that with the Terminator series, and I hate it. I'm not going to get it. It sounds awful. But the other thing is a film that you don't. Another controversial film between you and I, Buckaroo Banzai. There is a moment in Buckaroo Banzai where Reno and New Jersey, played by Jeff Goldblum, are dashing through a room and they see a watermelon and it's in a clamp. And Jeff Goldblum's character says, "What's with the watermelon?" And Reno just says, "I'll tell you later." And they rush off.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always been this thing of well, what is with the watermelon? And the point was that when the guy wrote it, he was like, "Oh no, but you're watching a film from another dimension. What you don't know is that watermelon is actually referencing another story that you've never read or you've never seen." So in 1984, they were already taking the mickey out of this thing of referencing stuff that you're never going to understand. And that's what this film is. This film, like Buckaroo Banzai, was doing this 35 years ago, or 30 odd years ago, 40 years ago now, where it was saying this is silly. Well, I'm gonna make a joke out of referencing something and it was taking the mickey out of comics was the point, and pulp novels where something that we referenced, it could be like, oh, you haven't read the pulp novel Four Back, or you haven't read issue 74 of Iron Man or whatever, right? It was taking the mickey out of that. But the fact of the matter is, what that has now materialized into is this film, where the watermelon is now
There are 200 watermelons
in
that
this
actually
film
do have references
but
to something else.
But if you watch
backwards and forward, just to make it extra stupider.
Exactly. This film is loaded with watermelons. But as you say, if you watch this in story canonical order, half of those watermelons you don't get. You just sort of, if you're a new person coming to this and you go, I'm going to watch Prometheus, Covenant, Alien, Romulus, and then Aliens, you don't understand Romulus and all the bits and pieces in Romulus until you've watched all of them.
Right, and I find myself thinking, like, if you've already got an engineer alien hybrid and you've got this goo, right? How is it a big deal when you get to 250 years later that you've got, Ripley and this weird human alien hybrid thing at the end? Like, how are we supposed to be entertained by that?
Goo, and they've not
the magic goo has disappeared.
Yeah, don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is bad. And I will say, I don't like Buckaroo Banzai, but Buckaroo Banzai, I don't like it because it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But at least it knows that it's trying to be fun. At
Mm.
least like it is not like if this were a non-canonical alien movie that were nudge nudge wink wink indicating, like this is not meant to be taken seriously. There are comedic elements left and right, like sure it's got a daft action sequence, but it kind of knows that it's daft, like, uh okay, it would be a lot more tolerable. Uh but this thinks it's smart.
Hmm. Do you know what's worrying? And I'll end on this point because this is my final. I've given you my final thoughts. I don't think this is a great film. My worry is exactly as you say. Everyone's praising it. It made over 110 million in its opening weekend. It was on a budget of 80 million, so it's made all its money back. We're getting more of these,
Hmm.
and they're going to
Right.
completely mess up everything else all over again.
Well, this is, I'm not a fan of most of the MCU films. I think, they're overrated. Some of them are, there's an astonishing percentage of
Mm,
them that are simply unwatchably bad. Um, and I think, the lesson that I see is that Hollywood sees it can't make money unless it's mind-bendingly done.
mm,
And I think about every movie, Dune, at least I respect.
mm.
Every movie that's made more than $500 million globally is fucking bad. It's just really bad and really stupid. And there really does seem to be the lesson, unless it's bad and stupid. Like audiences don't care
Mm-mm.
about, you know, logic. They don't care about plot. They don't care about anything. Just do whatever it takes to have an, dramatic, cool looking scene. Give us the hybrid at the end. Just throw fucking ideas at the camera. That's good. That's fine. That's enough to get them in the theaters and eat their popcorn and out. And it just feels like cinema's dead
Mm.
if that's where we've gone. And I think we're already there. But sadly, this just cements the lesson for the Alien franchise, as you point out.
Yeah, I think we're done with this franchise. I think this is it. This film has said to me, and I was looking forward to the TV show or the streaming series, whatever it was. I was kind of interested. Not anymore. My enthusiasm. This film has actively decreased my enthusiasm for any future Alien project.
Yeah. I mean, this has decreased my enthusiasm, not for that series, because I'll watch anything by Noel Hawley,
Mm.
but this has decreased my faith in the ability of Hollywood to make a movie that makes any sense. And I was already very suspicious of critics. There's been, movies like this before that I just don't get why it gets praised. And I feel as if the critics have turned off their brain, the standards are so low, you know. Uh I don't know. I did not have a horrible time in the theater,
No, I agree.
which was which is relatively rare for me. I will say
Mm.
that. I did not, I was not miserable watching this. That's what's going to go on the back of the Blu-ray. It's like, I was not miserable watching this, Julian Darius. That is as good an endorsement as I could say.
No, I think that's a fair point. I enjoyed it in the moment, but I've got no interest in going back to this film. And I think that's the point where I'm sort of going, this, I'm now picking and choosing, and I'm like, to me, I don't like Prometheus. Not, I hate Prometheus. I think Covenant's kind of a mixed bag, but mostly I don't like it. This is fitting into that, where I'm like, to me, now this is still, to me, even love or hate them, this is still Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, and I'm done.
Yeah. Nobody's in charge. It
No.
really is just one movie after another. I mean, there's Magic Goo now in the Alien universe, right? I mean, this is the movie that cements the black goo can do anything we want. Um, and those aliens just they can. There's no rules.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm kind of, you know, yeah, I don't know. It just this is where I'm down. You're right. I'm down to it. Like I'm not looking forward to anything else on this. I won't bother. Um, I think we've got to a point now where anything that's from an old IP that's being resurrected is the funny thing is, this kind of wink wink nudge nudge. It's built into certain franchises. Talk about horror franchises. It's built into the Scream franchise.
Hmm.
Part and parcel of it. So you expect it. I accept it. Like it's part and parcel. That self-referential, looking back, the meta-ness and all that, part and parcel of that franchise from the very get-go. That was the point of it. So you sort of go, oh, it's built into that, so it's fine. But it's not a part of this franchise, and it's I don't know. I just feel like we've got to a point where I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it is now with these old franchises. You know, I liked Terminator Dark Fate way more than this, and that wasn't at least that's something different. Tried to change the direction, tried to
Hmm.
do something different, didn't get any of the attention it should have done. This is getting all the plaudits. Everyone's applauding it. I think it's just this film falls apart by the end. Absolutely falls apart.
Yeah, I mean the lack of attention to consistency, the lack of attention to following its own rules, the love of the homage and the reference, that just takes over, um, and ultimately, not being able to step back and say, yeah, you could tell a horror story about, some young adults who get onto a weird space station and have this
Mm.
experience, and you think that is your story. But
That's
you are
yeah,
set in a universe. And the larger story is Weyland-Yutani created the space station after Alien and, did all these things. And when you take a step back and describe it objectively, it's horrible. But
yeah,
everybody is so into just what they think is the emotional through line of their masterpiece, that they can't see the forest for the trees
yeah.
in a way that horrifies me.
I think this is going to be one of those films. It's going to get a glut of opinion. It's going to get a glut of applause, and then I don't think anyone will talk about this film in 5 years' time.
Yeah, we're on the winning side, man. I mean, this podcast is a little time capsule. We are going to get hate mail.
Oh yeah.
We are going to get, people
The
tweeting at us. But
well,
in
the
10
pl-
years, we're going to be cited, man.
the place we get the most feedback is YouTube. So these obviously go onto YouTube, like just as an audio thing, and we get an awful lot of feed. I get not an awful lot, but we get some feedback on that. I am curious to see when this goes out what people say because we've had some opinions and I've had people come back and be like, "You don't know film," and you go like, "Well, yeah, all right, fine," but you know, and I've
Yeah,
had
we're really idiots. Yeah,
yeah.
the problem is we're dumb. That's our problem, right?
Well, I'm willing.
If anything, we're too smart and can't turn it off.
Yeah. It's
No,
once I start scratching away at a surface, I can't stop, and it kind of But the problem is that one of the things I will say is we're never going to do the Terminator franchise. So I kind of like the Terminator franchise. I don't want to have to focus on it too much. I get through those again. Apart from Genesis, I'd happily sit and rip Genesis a new one every day of the
oh,
week.
I'll
But
watch it. I mean, that's one I'll defend, and and I've talked about T3, and how I
maybe
defend
we'll
its
do that soon.
ideas.
We'll do that. Maybe we'll
Uh,
do it. We'll pick up the franchises. The big sort of horror action to me is Aliens, Terminator, Predator. They're the
yeah.
ones. We'll do them. We'll get around to all of them. Anyway, I
On
think we
to
are done.
Prometheus. But wait a minute, we've got 4 movies left to cover. We've got Alien versus Predator, 2 of those. We've got the 2 Prometheus films. You know, we've
Yeah,
only made it through 5 movies, Scott. You don't want to do 4 more of these?
I'm kind of good, to be honest. At this point, I'm kind of good doing this. What we are going to do, though, we are done with our interlude, and we are going to be returning to the main post-apocalyptic feed for season 5. So we are going to be returning to the main post-apocalypse, and after all that, we are going to be doing we're going to anime. We're starting back with some anime. With Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind from 1984. So good year because we stuck around that year from the mid 80s for a bit. Not seen this. I know of it. Um, So I'm kind of looking forward to, going back and trying this one out, actually.
And if you haven't gotten pissed off at us talking about Alien, we have on the Patreon Alien Isolation
Yep.
and the 6 Alien short films, which can be a little hit and miss, but I guarantee are better than this.
Yes. Yes. So,
And made
yeah,
for $10,000 a piece, man.
yeah, I'm
And
not gonna lie. I am actually looking forward to looking at those because short, sharp.
maybe not 10,000, yeah,
Well,
but
yeah, but short, sharp,
yeah.
little nuggets of this. I think that could be really interesting. So we'll see how they compare. But yeah, we're back to the post-apocalypse from the next episode, and we'll continue through, and we'll see where we go from there. We've got some good ones. We've got Nausicaa, Delicatessen, Tank Girl. That'll be quite good fun. The Postman. I seem to be forming a kind of bit of attachment to Kevin Costner. I'm not sure if it's
I'm
healthy.
sorry.
Yeah, Children of Men, and then we end with The Road on a real sort of like happy note is what we end on. So yeah, got plenty to come on. So, but anyway, if you do say join, check out the Patreon. So much stuff over there. Trekking through the Twilight, more sort of special bonus features for this. And there's going to be more post-apocalyptic stuff there as well. The wind, when the wind blows. Oh yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. An animated film from the 80s about an old couple dying of radiation. Hell Comes to Frogtown, Six String Samurai, On the Beach, and Oblivion. So we've got some other Patreon specials exclusives there. Go check it out. Link down below. Anyway, we should end on that. So Julian, thank you very much for joining me on this rant.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for helping me rant. I'm glad we are similarly warped in the brain.
Yes, I feel lighter for having got through this. But yeah,
You're not
thank you
alone,
very-
brother.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, but ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think. Please do feedback. Are we wrong? Are we right? What do you think of this? Have we changed your mind? Or have we just angered you and you never listen to us again? I don't know. But for now, thank you very much. And we shall see you on the next episode.
There's something very important I forgot to tell you.
What?
Don't cross the streams.